Okay, let's get started. 7 o'clock on Monday, the 25th of June. This is the Jamaica Selectboard meeting. First order of business is to call for any late additions to the agenda. Does anybody have anything that I don't know about that we should be adding?
I just wanted, I was going to mention that the issue down at the bottom.
Yes, I'll make that note.
I'll talk about that, just
Uh-huh.
to make it public, not,
That's a good question. Do we want to do that?
I don't know, you're calling that. Maybe not.
Let's not. Let's wait and let you do the background work first.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine, we should do that, right?
Yeah, let's do the background first.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Moving on into the next item is approve the minutes of June 11th, which is the last select board meeting. I think the minutes were shared with everybody electronically. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Anybody would like to have fixed, corrected, amended, changed, erased, modified?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
And I have a second from Judy. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented for the June 11th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are accepted.
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining?
Because I wasn't here.
Oh, right, sorry, 3 up and 1 abstention, but it passes. Thank you, sir. Next item is the time sheets for the town office, solicitors, highway, transfer stations, sign slip orders. These are things we historically do at the end of the session, as you all know, to save time from you guys. So you don't have to sit there and wait for us to do it. Which I think is darn nice of us, don't you agree? Okay, now, liquor license request. We have been requested by Luma Jawad, I think I pronounced that correctly, for, I guess this came through a couple of weeks ago, I'm trying to say the date, back in May 15th. And she was to, I think it's a she, I don't know if they met her or him.
Yes.
She, right? Yeah. She needed to get there's a training that has to take place to open a liquor license facility, and she did complete it, because she said it was gonna happen in June, and it did. She submitted her completion certificate for June 14th, and everything else was in order for her license with all the information plus the fees. So are there any other questions? I'd entertain a motion.
What is, could you explain more about this? I don't know. So
Okay.
she's opening a liquor store in Jamaica? or
No. This is
Just getting her certificate? or-
She is opening not quite exactly sure what to call it, whether it's a country store or, see if she uses a better term. This is the article of organization. It's a general store on West Jamaica Road.
Oh, okay.
And that she's going to, it's at 973 West Jamaica Road. And the goal was to have the store built and open by the end of the summer. They're leasing the property, and it's going to be 1071 General is the name of the store. It's supposed to be a general store, and they are going to be reading the letter. We plan to sell household items such as olive oil, sea salt, gift items, locally made soaps and candles, as well as local Vermont beers and some select wines. Hope to offer a place for people to stop by and come together, local items as well as some gifts from our travels. And
So no food,
well, I think food, but I don't think it sounds like a restaurant. It sounds like they may have food there.
or like
Convenience food.
like a general store.
Yeah. And so she submitted the request along with the entire package for the business and everything. And I've gone over it. I didn't catch anything except that she didn't have the license training yet. And so she did. It's I don't know exactly the name of it. It's 2018 store training, second class certification.
Where do they go for that?
I did not ask.
They rotate around where they're usually state offices and things like that,
No.
Manchester. I mean, every couple of months they move around the state.
Is this an annual requirement or first time?
Every other year.
Every 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So, at any rate, as near as I can tell, and I went over it with Terry, and as near as we can tell, all everything is accepted. So we just need to decide whether we wish to sign it. And
I'll make a motion to approve the liquor license for
Luma.
So
July, yeah.
July.
Yep. Do I have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and then we all need to sign this, but hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing none, this will carry, and I will flag it so that we remember to sign it tonight, so we can get that on the road. She's been patient. Let's just put it right on the top. Okay. The next item of business, review and sign the Rescue Inc. contract. I sent all these copies, I think everybody got a copy of this. Sarah scanned them in and sent them to everybody. Has everyone had a chance to review the contract?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions, any concerns that have come up?
So I guess being the first year that I've looked at it, I saw at the end they have all this activity. That's what they charge the town, or that's what they charge the person who's actually getting the services?
Which section?
At the very end, there's a laundry list of, here's a bunch of charges. So
Yeah.
if they do an emergency call in Jamaica, they charge the town $700, or they charge
I
the
believe
person's
these
insurance
are,
$700.
these are the ones that go into reimbursement activities such as insurance.
I see, okay.
Yeah,
I just-
the
It
actual-
wasn't clear to me, that's why, I mean, that makes sense to me, but I was just, okay.
Sure. What we end up paying is a per capita.
It's
So
the
we're
one-
paying that
Per capita fee.
$29,000 on top
Yeah.
of it, just to have them here, and then if the services are rendered without that list, then.
Exactly.
that's
This is their billing,
with the patient's insurance.
yeah. And then ours is a per capita basis, which I can't put my finger on right now.
I think it's the
So it's
population.
$28.63 per.
Yeah,
Resident.
that sounds right.
Or is that per family?
Per person.
Person.
What page are you on? Why can't I find it?
It's in the front, it's up in the front. It's in the front.
That's why.
If you take a ride with them in the ambulance and you don't have insurance, you'll get billed for it personally,
I don't know. It's-
not the town.
Is it this last page?
But if you want to contribute or donate $60,
Oh, there it is, yeah.
you can get 2 free ambulance
Yeah,
rides.
$50
Per
or
year.
$60
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah, Rescue Inc. has a plan whereby anybody can join their little organization or sign up for it, and you get a number, there's a whole string of things you get for free, among which is a couple of rides. And it's a whole lot cheaper.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, it's a very good deal.
Yes.
And anybody, it's just a really good deal.
You have to need the ride, you can't just like ask for them to take people on.
Can you go fast?
We don't encourage you
Lights
forcing.
on and all that.
Siren up.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to say this, he found this, I had the page turned over. The assessment is $28.63 per person, the population is 1,035, so the subtotal is $29,632.05. The monthly invoice amount is 11 payments at $2,469.34, with one at $2469.31. And that was all budgeted in, it's all been fixed in, so there's no real change in the budget, this is just making it official.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Rescue Inc. in the amount of $29,632.05.
I'll second.
We have a second. Judy,
I would just like to.
further discussion.
Say
Discuss away.
that the whole issue between Londonderry and that part of our town out near Rossendale, I think that's all been worked out. Is that correct?
From the perspective of a responder, it seems to be working fairly well. If there's other
That's my
factors,
sense.
I know we're responding, and I know as often as not, they're either ahead of us or behind, they're just right behind us, because they can respond very quickly.
Yeah, because that was kind of a
Yeah.
difficult issue.
It was a tough issue, but I think it worked out okay. You know, we're still speaking to each other.
That's good.
I just have a question about municipal representative signature and Rescue Inc. representative signature. Is that them or is that Stuart Barker, our
The
liaison?
municipal representative is Stuart Barker.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, but we are signing. Oops.
No, I was just wondering if he had to sign that for it to be binding or.
I'll have to go through that. I apparently flipped the pages over and got out of line. Mhm.
No, I know, I
Yeah,
looked it over, I
yeah.
was just wondering if that's what that meant.
Yeah, Stuart Parker is our representative to Rescue.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we will make that happen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, that motion carries. We will have signed the Rescue Inc. Contract. The next contract we have on the agenda tonight is the sheriff's contract. And this too was sent to everybody electronically. I hope everybody had a chance to review it.
So you sent two contracts, the last year's contract and this year's contract?
Yes.
That's so we could compare.
Exactly. The change from this year is minor. I think it's $1 an hour maybe. Yeah. So the money that we allocated within the budget stays the same. What happens is the hours are modified by that extra dollar minusculely. It's $40. Where's the numbers?
Went from 80 hours to 78
Down
hours.
to 70.
Yeah, down to 78 or something like that.
I was curious about that.
Yeah, it's just because of the way the money thing went out. Because we allocated X number of bucks,
Uh-huh,
and then their rate changed by $1.
uh-huh.
So, like
It's a
140.
weighted balance.
Yeah. Yep.
I think also, if I'm not mistaken, is this the one where they moved it up to the 1st of July?
What?
It began rather than,
I think so.
That's what I read, yeah, was,
yeah, before it was in like the middle of July where the new contract,
I think it's,
on
Well,
the old one that I
The-
think
the-
they-
Well, here's, the first page is that the agreement made on 24th of July 2017. That's when we make the agreement, but the actual dates, effectiveness are the regular fiscal year, 1st of July.
And that's the way it was last year also?
Yes. If you look on page 5 of the last contract, it shows this agreement shall be July 1, 2017 to
Okay.
June 30th, 2018. So it's the same basic
Yeah,
fiscal
same.
year, it's just when we actually did it.
Mhm.
So we're actually a little ahead of space since it's still June. Any other discussion?
At one time, we used to have the sheriff come and give us a report.
We can still do that.
I can contact them and do that.
If you want to, if you'd like the sheriff to come in and talk about how things have been going or that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, they've certainly been really cooperative over the
Yes,
years.
they have.
Yeah.
they do give us a written one.
Every-
once a month.
Yeah, we get monthly reports, but,
Tells us
It's nice to
exactly
have
what
That's
it
nice to
come
have
in.
face to face. I
Sure.
can just-
Sit
Yeah.
down with us.
yep, okay, that's a good idea.
I'll call.
Thank you.
There are a couple of things. One is that this revision for the second one, it needs to be adjusted for the new select board member.
Yes.
Oh, good point, you mentioned that to me. Let's see, where does that say here?
And secondly, and maybe that's a chance when they come in and discuss it, the top of the contract basically says to provide general law enforcement services, and that's the extent of what the contract is. I mean, the contract really lays out when they get paid, when they do this, and what obligations to go to court and go over.
Sure.
But
Very
I know we
good.
get the reports, but I was just curious, I mean,
I think
some
that they-
stipulation of how
We said-
where they spend their time,
Sure.
what they're doing, how they're,
I
is
had-
it just random arbitrary where they drive around or
We
whatever?
send a letter today.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, this is a response. Understand that Mark Anderson, who our usual contact, is deployed someplace around the globe with the National Guard, but he wrote today, hi Terry, this is off of memory, as I'm currently out of the country with the National Guard. This has been a long-standing language in our contract, which we use to help employ the intent of the select board for what we do and do not do. Some of the language in our contract is required by state statute, while some of it is curtailed based on our discussions over the years. Ultimately, we try to be as cost-effective for the town while providing the service it asks of us. I'm going to defer to Sheriff Clark in this since I don't have the documents readily available. How all is well, he's deployed. So, this would be, maybe we should, you want to put the contract on hold until we get a chance to talk to the sheriff?
I don't think we need to do that.
Well, the other point
It needs to be,
is,
I mean, if it needs to be, it goes into more detail about,
Yeah.
it is much, and this was another thing I wanted to point out, about 2 or 3 contracts ago. It talks mostly about motor vehicle but not limited to,
yeah.
and that they'll back up their officers or their deputies with you know, going to court and all of that, but it is mostly law enforcement, traffic enforcement, but not limited to that. And that reminded me of a couple of years ago when it went up. The last time we saw Sheriff Clark there, they wanted $5,000 more, or they offered, if we paid $5,000 more, that beside the traffic, they would at times do other kinds of law enforcement, like whatever may come up. But the way that's worded, it looks like if they saw a law being broken, that they would, act on it. But we're mostly hiring them by the wording of that contract for traffic.
I think that's the bulk of what they do.
But it's not limited to traffic.
Well, I know we've run into problems when we needed them to do a little bit more policing rather than just traffic. And we were not able to get them to do that. And we would have to go to the
Wow.
state police.
The state police are our chief, our what do you call it? Primary law enforcement.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
So,
So for example, if you got robbed,
right.
you only got burgled, call the state police. Yeah. So
But if they saw someone kicking a door in.
Yeah, or if you walk in on somebody, you can always call in this case. They're very responsive, it's just they have very limited.
And those reports at times do say, for instance, somebody was arrested for drugs in this parking lot a couple of years ago, and the sheriffs were patrolling, and,
Yeah.
so they do give a report once a month on other things and how many tickets they have written, or other things.
Yeah,
Our dealt with, I understand.
my question too, and I'm with Danny too, I don't think it maybe justifies holding this up, because they are doing a good job, I wasn't questioning that, but just, it was pretty vague on what they did, and it occurred to me, sometimes you see them sit, they're sitting in traffic in town here, and sometimes in Rossingville, and I didn't know if there was, percentage of time that they do this and do that, and they drive around, and they do, they drive up the different roads and whatnot, and, it all makes sense, but is it just somewhat arbitrary was what I was curious about, what their protocol was.
When he came, one time we talked about having him make a little bit more, the patrols in addition to the traffic, but also patrolling a lot of the second homes, a lot of the areas of Pikes Falls. and
They did that.
They did that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've seen them periodically going up.
And that's in their reports.
Yeah.
They don't want to put their directed patrols
No.
out before they do them.
Well, I was another part of me too, sometimes are they too predictable, that they're always sitting in Rossingville on Tuesdays, and everybody knows to slow down Tuesdays, and they be a little bit more unpredictable.
I see them all over the place.
I wonder how many of our residents really are aware that they do not really do the type of policing that really goes to the state police. And would they call the sheriff's department first and then have to be told, well, we don't handle that?
That's what happens.
Well, they'll call 911 first,
Uh-huh.
and 911 will direct them to the appropriate
You think
agency.
they will?
That's the
They do.
plan.
Okay.
Yeah,
If you
911.
call the sheriff's department direct and it's not something that they want to deal with, they send you right to the state police.
So the quickest way for anybody is dial 911, and those guys will get the right people at the right time as fast as they can.
I was just wondering though, how many of our residents really know that
I don't know
the
the
state
answer.
police ought to be the first contact if they're going to call it directly, that organization.
Yeah. If you have the time to call the police, the state police will be the one to call. But if it's an emergency, don't waste time looking them up. 911, and they'll get the right people to you.
And state police are paid for by our tax dollars, but some towns hire them,
For
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 additional
additional
coverage,
hours.
which is, I hope
To
we
do
would
extra work.
think about doing that. but-
Yeah.
It's an interesting situation here in southern Vermont, because there just aren't enough police jurisdictions. There's not enough state cops to cover the whole area. So they do the best with what they have across the whole
Sure do
state.
see a lot of state police around
Yeah.
since they built the new barracks.
Yeah, over in
Yeah.
Rockingham.
I see them pretty often, but that's because I'm responding to wrecks and things, yeah.
I mean,
Before we finish the discussion, to your point of Did we already move? We had made the moves?
I don't think so.
No.
Well,
I don't think so.
Oh, well, okay, sorry. Motion.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that being on Route 30, I'm very aware of this route that the people who build these prefab houses come down. And they're certainly doing 40 or 50 miles an hour. And the road is not wide enough. And I have seen cars go into my driveway to avoid them, which I'm glad they could, because otherwise they would have been knocked off the road. And I have yet to see the state police, the sheriff catch one of them. I'm sure they would like to if they saw it, but
That happened to us today.
yes.
There were two that went down. The second one was going right down the center of the road.
Right.
And we were going, actually it was going over a bridge, so we couldn't even go up on the grass. It was very close.
Yes.
We've had a conversation,
Yeah.
just without going into details, we did respond to an accident last week, or week, I was tracking, where somebody was trying to avoid one of those buildings. And the state police are very much aware of it, and we reinforced it that night and continue to do that.
No, it's not happening.
I haven't seen anybody pulled over yet, but that doesn't mean they're not being pulled over someplace else, I don't know.
There are also other trucks, loggers,
Yeah.
construction trucks.
Well, I've seen them sitting down there, I just haven't seen them catch it.
They've never stopped a truck, in my experience.
Really?
I've never seen them stop a truck, and they're coming down 50 miles an hour when they come down that hill, and there's no way a logger is gonna stop from
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
No, they need to slow down.
So
All right, well, that's.
I would love to see
When the
that.
chief comes, in fact, find out what he can do, then we can book it in for next,
Okay.
and then we can talk about that. But I've talked to the state police. The other life I have, the local emergency planning commission, the local lieutenant for the barracks is on that committee. We've talked around these things, and it's a problem all over that they are very much aware of. Now, we may not see what they're doing, and maybe this doesn't get the attention because they're someplace else, but we can certainly have our sheriff take a look at it, because this is our streets, and we want to make sure it's safe. And you're right, they come down way too fast. Yeah. Okay, so we have a second, do we have a motion?
We must have a motion.
I don't think we have one.
No, I don't.
I'll entertain that motion.
Without a motion.
I'll move
We're advanced.
that we,
Okay, we have a motion from Jim, do you have a second?
A second.
Okay, in the further discussion portion, what, the part where you looked at the select board members, this is on the 2017 contract, where they have Lexa and
Oh,
Joel.
I thought that was a new one.
I'm pretty sure this is the one from 2017.
yes.
Right.
I didn't know.
And so the way I
noticed
interpreted
that.
it, there was this cover letter with just these changes
Yeah.
as to last year's, and I think that should be noted that there's an additional change.
Right,
Let me make
except
a
the
note of that.
signatures have to be different because the two of you are not
Sure.
on that signature block.
How you saw it too, Nate?
Yeah, I thought
Just
that
cover
was-
letter with one of the changes, yeah,
Right.
and it didn't mention that change, yeah.
See, I just read it as, oh, that's last year's, that's fine, didn't think that it should have a page to change, so I'm glad you caught that. All right, I will check on that. If we can get that thing accomplished, do we need to wait another 2 weeks to sign it, or are we happy with it?
Oh, right. There's a motion to accept it.
There is a motion to accept it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will have this signed, and I will see if I can get that thing fixed before we get that signed. Excellent, okay. The next item is, we've been talking for some time about changing email addresses, and you said that this is.
There's still two options. The first option I looked into, SV Cable does not customize their addresses. So if we wanted to have customized Jamaica.org addresses, we would need to pay for them. And again, it was about $500 for 3 years, I believe, or something like that. Or we can do, the other idea that was floated at the last meetings was to just do, Selectboard.
Paul at Selectboard.
Paul
at Selectboard.
Board at Sauber.net and so on and so forth. That's great, because I think we have
And that'd be easy
and
enough.
enough addresses. So, you know, it comes down to, do we want to spend money or not? And, you know, what spending the money offers us is a higher level of professionalism, I feel.
Lots.
Makes sense. I mean, I think the professionalism level is, I mean, can be addressed by both ways, but I think it should be very, it should be that they're very independent from each of our personal emails. If this says Paul at SB Cable, or it says Paul at Jamaica Selectboard.com, probably accomplishes the same thing.
Yeah, regardless, either way that we do it, it's gonna be a separate address that's specifically for select board business, or town business, because we obviously get one, right?
Sure.
Keith has one already and such, so I mean, and I believe that Terry has one as well.
Yeah, Terry
If he
and,
uses it or not, I don't know, but they have those addresses, so I mean, it comes down to a decision, do we want to say JamaicaVermont.org, or do we not want that in there? And again, the cost of that is, then we allocate funds towards that.
And it's a couple $100 a year, it's $400.
It's like, yeah, it's a few $100s a year, yeah.
What does Terry's address say in Keys?
well, Terry, Keith is Jamaica Roads at SB Cable.
Oh.
You are
Jamaica Town Clerk.
Jamaica Town Clerk, and Terry's Jamaica Treasurer at SB Cable.
And so the option would be, could say Paul Fraser at SB Cable, or could say Paul Fraser at.
Well, I think anything that we have should say somehow
Select.
represent the town, yeah, or select board. or
Right,
something
So
like
like theoretically, it'd be Paul Paul.Fraser.Selectboard at
that. Or
SB
something
Cable.
we can-
I'd be fine with that and spending no money because
Mhm.
that differentiates it from my Andrews Painting or whatever the hell one of my addresses is.
Yeah, I'm
And I
in
don't
favor
know-
of not spending the money.
Well, it seems a little more simple.
I think that's easiest.
Okay.
because-
I mean,
I mean,
that's the
that's-
discussion we're having, and I
Yeah.
can set it up, I have credentials to go in, I believe, and I'll go
Okay.
set up the addresses and get them out to everybody, and we'll start using them.
So,
So I'll
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, go
Our addresses, who else, like, it'd be just amongst us, amongst the town?
ahead. I think they'd be published on the website. Do we publish our email addresses now?
No.
I don't know if we do, but
So I don't know, wherever they would be published, for example, if you're working with Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but you want to switch it to that new address, yeah.
well, that's what we did individually. Like I've got mine spread out all over emergency management for the whole southern Vermont, so I'm gonna do a lot of changing.
You've got a little bit of work to do.
I got a little bit of work to do, but for the town business alone, do you, and I'm looking at Sarah, do you anticipate any difficulties doing it from your end? If we change ours to, for example, Paul Fraser, Paul.Fraser.Selectboard at SB Cable. That's up to you guys at all, will it?
I mean, they're just using different email addresses, that's all.
Yeah.
Here's the group of new email addresses, there you go.
And it might take some time to roll them all over, but
Yeah.
it's a start, it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, I think.
It's a step in the right direction, I'll try to get that done before the next meeting.
Okay, so we,
Get everything set up and communicate with Sarah and get that done.
can you all, when you talk to these guys, does it make more sense to put, for example, Paul.Fraser.Selectboard or Paul.Selectboard, or how best? to
What
do
would you
that?
like me to do?
Well, that's the question.
Fraser.Selectboard, we.
Put your whole name
Put the whole
on
name on
it
it.
for public.
I think so. I think,
Paul.Fraser.Selectboard,
yeah,
okay.
and I think the state does that to their people.
What?
First name dot, second name
Oh,
at, whatever the,
huh,
Or is it
DHS.
Jamaica, Paul.Fraser.Jamaica Selectboard? It's a long email address.
it is.
that's a long name.
Yeah, because you want to identify the Jamaican part.
There's a lot of dots too, yeah.
We get left off.
The dots are ignored.
Just,
You can,
We just take the dots.
well, just to make it more readable, but if you put a dot in or you don't put it in, it doesn't change the address.
We could number you all, you could be select board
No.
1. Select board 2.
Number 2.
maybe select board 3.
I
Drop
guess-
straws, get your number.
It seems to me that if it's going to be public communications, that we probably ought to have our full name. And
That's,
Jamaica.
that's my thought.
Maybe we could just be Paul.Fraser.Jamaica. We wouldn't have to say select board if we're looking for a little bit more
Jamaica
truncated.
SB or something. Jamaica SB Selectboard.
Sure,
That
yeah,
cuts out all of them.
that'd be a good compromise.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the work for the rest of us?
Mhm.
Lots of nods. Okay, sir,
I will get that stuff done
thank you.
post haste.
Now, I've had some mail from the Planning Commission.
Chair back there.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have a shirt factory down there? Yes.
Number 9.
I can give a quick update on, yeah, item 9.
I don't have that on this one.
Oh, I added it, sorry.
Oh, nice.
Referencing it.
It's on the
So-
one in your folder.
Is there? Sorry about that, I wasn't here. Oh, yes, it's there, okay. We add that in there. So.
So I can give a quick update on progress, as everybody may know or may not know, a month ago or so, some damage was done on the roof of what we call the chair factory, the old town garage. I've actually, I mean, it's been like pulling teeth to try to get somebody even to do a quote on it. I think some of it is that they realize that their workload is so far out that they're not very aggressive as far as getting some quotes in. So I've talked to 3 different people and they all indicate that they will get a quote. It's just that I haven't seen it yet and it's been 4 weeks. Some feedback is, you know, the extent of the shape of the building and how much effort goes into repairing the roof. Obviously that's important, but you know, some indications that it's gonna be $20,000 to fix the roof and you're fixing a $40,000 building. So we may have to cross that bridge when we say, where does this, what's our anticipated, you know, use of the building, et cetera. I mean, it does get used, but it's not in the it's not in a perfect location for a lot of uses. So to be continued, I guess, is the best way to put it. We'll wait to get a quote. The insurance adjusters have looked at it. They seem to be waiting to know what the quotes are before they tell us. I mean, I didn't know it worked that way, but that's, I've talked to them too, and they've said, do you have any quotes or estimates? And we don't. So that's that.
It may be a waiting game, just till they can get to it or when they think.
Yeah, I mean, other than it's got a gaping hole in it, I mean, some of it, I've asked everybody to kind of quote just doing a quick repair type thing and what it would take to redo the whole roof, because the whole roof has issues too, so.
It is a good question, though, if the roof is going to cost more than what the building costs.
Yes, I mean, and I walk around over there today, there's rotted sills. The building is, I mean, it's still standing, looks square, but it's not all that fancy or in the greatest of shape.
10 years ago, I had a very sound and very good timber frame in, and there was talk at that time of the town possibly selling the frame of the building.
Yeah, I think that's
Somebody
still
was
possible.
interested in taking it down and reassembling on a different site, because it's an extremely exposed, dangerous location with
Yeah.
respect to flooding.
And the framing, from my experience, the timber frame does look sound. It looks like it's been, all the outside sheathing's all been redone over the years. I mean, there's windows that have been boarded up and stuff, and you can't really see that from the outside, but I think the internal timbers are still pretty sound.
That may be an option at some point, but like you said, we don't have any numbers to compare it with right now, so I don't know what it would cost or how much we could sell a timber for. That's obviously part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll keep us posted.
Yep.
Anybody have anything else you want to add to that? Thank you for doing that. That's been a lot. I've been chasing
A
around.
fun little challenge.
Yeah. Okay, now, where was I? Just replay whatever I said. The Planning Commission. We have a discussion from the Planning Commission, and I have a letter from Karen Emmett supporting the conversation. I asked somebody from the Planning Commission to give us about 5 minutes of a opening shot on this topic, whoever's in charge of making that. I see some nodding.
Rebecca's going to
I'm
introduce
going
you.
to briefly introduce.
Introduce yourself to the camera.
I'm Rebecca, I'm the chair of the planning commission. So I really appreciate you putting the topic on the agenda. I just wanted to start out by saying that when we went to the forum in Townsend last month regarding the possible building of a big box store in Townsend, the thing that really struck me at that meeting was that it seemed to me the Townsend voters had made assumptions that their town officials had already protected them from this particular kind of building. And it occurred to us very, like hit us like a ton of bricks, that it's very possible that people in Jamaica have that assumption as well. And we know that they don't. We know that that's not the case. So I think it's time to begin a conversation. We encourage looking at all sides of the issue, at different ways that we can think about our scenic corridors and ways of protecting what we have in the adopted town plan have acknowledged is the economic basis of our town, which is its view sheds and its scenic corridors and its natural resources, and it's just darn pretty. So, Chris, would you like to?
Well, I would like, I guess, again, to thank the select.
Chris, excuse me, before you go, introduce yourself to the camera.
I'm
Just
sorry.
introduce yourself.
Chris Robbins.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Chris
On the
Robbins.
Planning Commission.
I know who you are, but
I'm
perhaps
Chris
someone.
Robbins, I'm a member of the Jamaica Planning Commission too. And I would like to thank you for agreeing to hear our request to reconsider implementing zoning laws. We appreciate the sensitivity of the issue and that it may stir up controversy, but we think because of recent developments, it needs to be addressed now. And the catalyst for this is the imminent and maybe by now consummated purchase of the Lawrence Smokehouse by the Zareba Group, which is the real estate front for Dollar General Corporation. A purchase order has been signed. There's contingencies in it having to do with determining that the site is suitable for building a store, a Dollar General store. And it does not require an Act 250 permit because the site is smaller than an acre. Townsend has no zoning ordinances like us, so there's nothing really to stop them from building a store. And the ball is pretty much in Dollar General's court. When the contingencies are met, Townsend will be presented with a fait accompli. A private citizens group, which call themselves the Townsend Area Residents Resist Dollar General, circulated a survey soliciting not only Townsend but surrounding towns' opinion on locating a Dollar General store there. And the survey recorded overwhelming disapproval of Dollar General locating at that location, or on the 30th period. They held a community forum on the 24th of May in the Townsend Town Hall, inviting Townsend residents and people from surrounding communities, and Rebecca and I attended that. The Selectboard was noticeably absent. They took attendance, more or less, and I think this is because either the current or past head of the Selectboard owns the Lawrence Smokehouse property, and they may not want to get involved for that reason.
Just real quick, which select board was notified?
Townsend.
The Townsend. Okay.
Townsend,
I
sorry.
didn't want to make clown. We were.
No.
We were, but we didn't want to go.
So the major points that were discussed, briefly I'll summarize them, were there was a lot of venting against Dollar General and in particular large corporations in general. I'm not sure what that accomplished, but anyhow, it was clear that the overwhelming opinion was that that people don't want them located in town. There was concern expressed that competition from national chains will drive out small independent enterprises, but won't replace the product lines they offer. and they're talking about the Riverbend Market. Not all the comments were negative. Some people said that we should consider the people who need low-price stores like Dollar General to provide the things they need. And but there was very strong and almost unanimous support for maintaining the scenic nature of Route 30. I guess this was the most disconcerting comment to me, and that is the lack of zoning ordinances make Townsend's town plan provisions for land use and economic development unenforceable. And so they are considering passing an emergency zoning ordinance to prevent Dollar General from building a big box. But there really was a lot of consideration and no resolution on its enforceability. And the one yes.
About that, knowing a little bit about the planning commission and how long it takes for anything to be passed and put out there, is how quickly would that be for an emergency plan?
They didn't know.
Because that's a very complicated
I'll get to that.
situation.
You're one point ahead of me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The one person who was an attorney in the audience was an attorney from Newfane and got up and said he didn't have a clue whether it was enforceable or not. So, however, they were considering circulating a petition, which if they got a sufficient number of signatures, and I think it's 100, would compel the Townsend Selectboard to address the issue and put it up for a town vote. And I understand they've done just exactly that, and it was on the agenda for their last meeting.
The town vote or the?
I don't know what the results were. No, I doubt if they've had the town vote.
No, I'm saying they put it up, they discussed it, they have.
Yeah.
But I also believe they've got the number of signatures they need
Yes.
to have a special town meeting.
But even then, 45 days out, wouldn't it be for to warn that, 30 days at least?
Right.
It's July 12th is the meeting.
Oh, okay, so, you know.
So the most practical comment I heard was from somebody recommending that they make a deliberate consideration of passing zoning ordinances now to prevent further development, unwanted development. But they pretty much had to accept what's happening with Dollar General. And the most thoughtful comment was from a lifelong Townsend resident who got up and said he's always been very much opposed to zoning regulations. He still doesn't like them, but he's now considering that maybe they're necessary if they want to protect the rural nature of their town. So the Planning Commission thinks this is a wake-up call to Jamaica, because if Dollar General succeeds in Townsend, it's probably very likely that further development will occur along Route 30 and probably some of it in our town. And the realization that our town plan is unenforceable is disquieting, to say the least. And furthermore, to the untrained eye, the economic section of our town plan may look like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, because we're welcoming development along Route 30. And the only thing I can say is the people who wrote that didn't have Dollar General or the big boxes in mind. We were thinking more of keeping it away from the woods and the town roads that radiate out from Route 30. So that may need to be changed as well. And we think the time to act is now, before we're faced with a unwelcome development, and we now, I think, have time to address the issue properly. So in deciding these points, we ask you to consider some of these points. And the first is that the zoning ordinance don't need to be these comprehensive things that interfere with everybody's life and, you know, really are objectionable. They can be limited in scope and very focused on controlling development along Route 30 and 100, and that's it. Timely action now will avoid a rushed approach later, and give us time to consider these ordinances carefully. Our citizens who in the past have been opposed to zoning ordinances may now feel the same way as that citizen in Townsend who said, well, yeah, perhaps we gotta have them after all. And the last point I want you to consider is that if we do decide to implement zoning ordinances, they have to be very well constructed to withstand court challenges. Dollar General has a very impressive history of overturning zoning ordinance and forcing themselves into towns that really don't want them. And so we will have to have legal expertise review these to make sure they're properly written. The town has resources that are expert in this area, but in the end, we're going to have to have a legal review, and that's going to cost money. So accordingly, we request that the Select Board consider raising the issue of implementing zoning ordinances for the purpose of controlling development along Route 30 and 100. We recognize that this is a town vote issue, the town has to approve that, but before we do that, we recommend giving the issue the broadest possible publicity to get everybody involved and solicit the maximum participation in any decisions. And things we can do is write up this presentation and put it on our website. We can add this to the town survey update that we're planning. Maybe hold a town forum similar to the one that you held for the water issue, and seek a consensus from the town on whether or not to approve before we spin our wheels writing up, and what the scope should be before we spin our wheels writing up something that's not going to pass.
Sure.
You know, an approach similar to what you're taking with the water issue.
I might want to separate those. I don't want someone who let their view or their discussion on the water issue be contaminated by the fears of Dollar General. I like to keep
Dollar General in Townsend.
in Townsend. I'd like to keep the water issue kind of a little discreet.
I didn't mean to conflate them. I just thought the way you're going about addressing the water issue.
Oh, the same concept. Okay.
Is the way you
I got you. Well, clearly a town meeting is in order. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, I thought you meant putting it together with the.
No. That's-
Gotcha. Good.
I had one point too that I wanted to add, because I think it's very relevant when you, having worked on the town plan, the economic development portion, and that's something I strongly support. And I had just gone to an economic development conference at Killington last week, and it was titled Building a Sense of Place. And you think that that's not necessarily economic development, but it was all surrounding that. And Jamaica's got a very strong sense of place for a lot of reasons that were being talked about there, and things that we already have. I mean, we've got great recreation, we've got scenic corridors and things. The Jamaica Arts Council, I mean, we've got a lot of activity. We've got a quaint street. We've got some vibrant businesses here already. So the economic development portion of building a sense of place has to be consistent with what we have. And so that's the part I think is inconsistent with the Dollar General, any other box store. I'm fully supportive of all business development, but it has to be fitting with what we want here. Anybody can go down to their neighborhood strip mall and go to a Dollar General. It's not the economic development we're working here. So I think that maybe needs to be clarified in the town plan. Looking back at it, would be very specific about that kind of economic development. But fully support what you guys are talking about.
Do you want to comment? Yes.
I'm in the minority here. I understand what you're getting to. I'm not fearful that a Dollar General or a Walmart's gonna go up in the town of Jamaica or up on Turkey Mountain Road or down on Back Street or Water Street. And I think a lot of what you've left out is the negative aspects of zoning, limited or whatever. The amount of reading I've done just to scratch the surface about any kind of zoning in the town. It's really deep, I know you touched on that, but when I signed that petition that was at the store, and I understand Karen Aminen, she's a merchant, she has a general store. The Dollar General may impact her in Townsend, and may impact her if there was one here. But I don't think that it's any of my business what the sellers or who he sold it to down there, how that gets the whole town of Jamaica involved into this like fear-based, we're gonna have a strip mall going down to the middle of town. I don't see that happen. And I'm against the town meeting. I mean, if you want to have a forum or something, this should be on a warrant on the next town meeting. The way this water thing was pushed through, I thought it should have been on the warrant on the next town meeting, but we had a special meeting. I don't know where the water thing is at now, but, you know, sitting here on the board, what if I told you I have stock in Dollar General? Does that mean I can't be on the select board? I think it's a little alarming that a lot of what was said at that meeting, I believe they recorded that, at least whatever I watched, unless that was the select board meeting. There were a number of people against zoning in Townsend, and we're not hearing that much about that. But it's just my opinion as a resident mostly. I mean, I'll work with the board, but I'm against, not to be closed-minded, but I'm against zoning in the town of Jamaica right now. That's all I'm gonna say.
And I respect what you're saying, but I think that's why we need to have the conversation, to get both views, to see what the top feeling of the town is. And that's why I think having a forum or having a warrant meeting is important, to find out what the community wants. Because there are different views back and forth. I agree with you that I think Jamaica's at risk, especially if they build in Townsend. I think Londonderry is much more an easier spot with the shopping center already up there to put something like that up there. And I think they may just skip over Jamaica. They're building that big building over in Bonneville as well, with the hardware store or whatnot. So, but I think it's good to at least look at it and see what the town feels, and go from there. And potentially we would look at zoning, or we don't. We at least have a discussion about it and really get people to come out and talk about it. I think that's important.
I agree with that. That we need to talk about it and open it up for people to really express where they're at, and give the pros and cons, and keep us out of decision-making process, but just be allowing for the discussion to take place. I think that I see as our job.
My guess is that the discussion's taking place anyway,
Yes.
because it's getting a lot of publicity. I would like to see the discussion focused on facts, as opposed to some of the hysteria that's going on at the other end. I think we need to control that. There's one other piece of this too. What's going on with the Dollar General is one piece of the zoning picture. If we open up to zoning, then there may very well be a lot of people who have different versions of how they would like to see zoning developed. And we may find some things about garages encroaching on property lines, for example. We may see a variety of other kinds of things that this may open up. Not to say that it shouldn't, but we need to be aware that if we open this can of worms, there may be some pretty unpleasant worms in there. It's not that we shouldn't do it, but I think the discussion is important. Go ahead.
I appreciate that it could be perceived as a nose under the tent and invite others. But what I hope we can do is, if we do decide to proceed, decide what the limits on scope should be. And another point to address Andy's concern, I think we probably need legal advice as to what exactly you can zone and not zone. Protecting, trying to pick winners or losers in economic competition, for instance, I don't think is a proper function of government. And probably wouldn't stand up in court if we tried to do it. But I do think we could pass zoning ordinances that said if you build something in, on Route 30, it's got to look like it belongs here. Architectural limitations.
And that becomes a legal question about whether any zoning that opens the door to varieties of other kinds of zoning, and we spend every March discussing somebody else's version of zoning,
Yeah,
which we may have to do. I don't know.
no, that would be too bad.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And another way to approach it, instead of zoning, which would be uniformly applied, for all the areas that you designated, would be specific bylaws and ordinances that are much more narrowly targeted to the kinds of development that we don't want to see here, that we don't think belongs in our countryside. That's where we need to get help from the Regional Planning Commission, their zoning and planning, land use planning experts that are available to us. One of the things that the Planning Commission plans to do is to apply for another municipal planning grant for this coming round, which I mentioned to you earlier, that we could certainly use the funds that are part of that grant to help us in this respect, to help us get more information about exactly what our options are.
Oh, good.
On speaking to, and a side note, we didn't put this on the agenda for an update, but we've been working with the Planning Commission, with Lisa and Greg and I, around a signage ordinance. And a lot of what we've spoken about in that is trying to keep things in the frame, like we're talking about, this architectural frame, where, we don't want a big light up sign in the middle of Jamaica saying, hey, D&K is coming, not to pick on anything, I don't want to pick on it, but we want to try to make it so it's a quaint little village. When you come into the village, you see that. And then even in the outer areas, we don't want certain types of signs or certain lit signs. And there's a lot of state laws in Act 250 and the billboard sign law that also discusses what types of signs you can have and you cannot have. And I think that doesn't necessarily stop a Dollar General from putting a store in, but if they can't have a big light up sign like you'd see in Brattleboro or Rutland, it definitely has a different impact on the community than if they could build whatever they wanted to, the box store right in the middle of,
The Chester
so.
has a Dollar General, it doesn't look like the one in Brattleboro
Right.
because of their zoning. They made them
Maybe
dress that up a little better than
They
the
just-
regular
Oh,
dollars.
that's right, they just put it up by the new gas station.
And I believe, I'm not sure, but Chester isn't much of a different size town, their population a lot bigger than ours.
They're a little bigger.
There's a-
Yes.
Their downtown's bigger.
They are bigger than
Yeah,
us.
they've got Depot Street, they've got
15 or
Depot back
18,
there, they got.
Yeah, but not 3,000.
My point is that we're doing this signage, we hope to have an update for you at the next meeting. And we address some of these issues that could arise around when you say, I don't want this big store smack dab down in the village, in the middle of Jamaica. We're gonna address some of that.
That's an ordinance though, not, I mean,
Yeah, it's not zoning
I
by any
know that
means.
we're talking about, maybe getting some help from a grant or something, we're gonna have huge attorney fees here to even start to, whatever happens, I mean,
Well,
but
on that note,
this is being presented because of the Dollar General in Townsend. And I just wish that we were addressing the zoning issue for something besides that possibly happening in Townsend.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about. This is what
Approach it that way.
well, I know, but that's not what really happened.
Well, I think I agree with you in the sense that I don't think we ought to be talking about zoning running from out of fear of what's going on in Townsend. But as we look towards our future, as opposed to behind us, and see what we would want to do with the town.
As Chris said, it's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
But it's not really. It's because of the Dollar General in Townsend.
Well, let's waking this up.
But that is waking us up.
Let me,
I think a wake-up call is exactly that, to point towards the future and to encourage us to think and to be very deliberate about what we want our future to
Before
look
it's too
like.
late.
Before it's too late.
Waiting to get it.
Charlie, did you have it?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the planning commission is correct in that what they're saying here is that what's being proposed here is not, I think the planning commission is not reacting to Dollar General, but instead the planning commission is reacting to their relatively newly gained knowledge that the Jamaica Town Plan, which has been demonstrated to be very important to Jamaica residences, can't be implemented. It essentially, people in Jamaica, I served on the planning commission for about 15 years, and I represented the town at the London Regional Commission for an equal length of time, and I have quite a bit of experience in that field. And the Jamaica citizens feel that because their town plan has nice sounding language in it about maintaining the character of the village and keeping things nice and looking the way they are, that somehow that means that those things are going to happen the way the town plan says they're going to happen. And what the planning commission is trying to bring to public attention and to the select board's attention is that without some level of local regulatory enforcement, zoning and or subdivision or a combination of those and local ordinances, we cannot enforce, we cannot depend upon Act 250 to do the job that needs to be done to implement our own town plan.
Yeah, good point.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Is the planning commission, are you still presenting? Are you finished with your presentation? Do you have more to tell us?
I pretty much said what I have to say.
What I think now is either public concerns or we can sit here and discuss this, but I think the presentation has been made. I'm not one want to nip it in the bud, but I mean, I certainly have a strong opinion. We all have opinions. And what are we going to do next?
Well, in concert with what you're saying about the public opinion, I do have a letter, since you brought up Karen and some of you brought up Karen. We did get a letter from Karen I want to read, but the point of this discussion was to get the discussions going.
Yes,
We're not making any decisions, but I think that that's got the discussion going.
Yeah.
And that's why it was important for you guys to say it on camera, because I want everybody in town. We're not making decisions, we're just talking, but we need to talk. Let me read, again, I got this from Karen, and it's part of the conversation.
Karen Abbott.
Karen Abbott is, you mentioned, a couple of you have mentioned her feelings about this. And she's writing to the Jamaica Selectboard, I am not able to make the Selectboard meeting tonight, but I wish to let you know that I think the town of Jamaica should consider zoning paragraph. It is looking like Dollar General is probably going into Townsend. It also looks like Dollar General is wanting to dot our Vermont landscape with their stores, basically every 10 miles or so. This is not how I want Vermont and Jamaica to look. I think the only way to keep them out is to bring zoning into town. I've looked at potential properties in Jamaica along the Route 30 and Route 100 corridors. There are a few properties in Jamaica that would interest Dollar General. They are looking for towns with no zoning and land under 1 acre to avoid the Act 250 process. Zoning is what we want it to be. I don't think any of us want to be told what color to paint our homes or to have to go through the process every time we want to add a shed or a chicken coop. This zoning could be more specific to buildings over 7,000 square feet or less than an acre, etc. I'm not a huge fan of zoning, but really feel that we need to be proactive with this. Now is the time to address this. Thank you, Karen Hamden, in support of what you guys are saying. So there is, I am confident, dozens, perhaps hundreds of little tiny glitches that the legal system will find in anything we do. So it's going to take us a long time to do it. We need to make sure that all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted as we go forward. But first, as we have mentioned, we need to make sure that we have the support of the community in even going that far. And so as we gather the information, I think he's representing a significant component in the community. We need to address both sides of it. And at some point, as we gather this information, I believe we need to have a public forum. And perhaps summertime isn't the best time to do it. Maybe early fall when the kids are back in school, they go back to vacations. We can put something together with a presentation just to discuss the discussion, not to make any decisions. Because any decision for this is going to have to wait till town meeting day anyhow. So we really need to get the mood of the community, I think, before we start talking to attorneys, because that's going to get expensive. At least the community is relatively cheap to talk to. Relatively.
This will not be a rush job to avoid having Dollar General
Yeah.
find their way here in case Townsend turns it down. That will not work.
My understanding is at this stage, they can't go back and retroactively turn them down anyhow. So, yes.
I just wanted to agree with Judy that that's exactly why we brought it to the town's attention right now, so that if we do make decisions, that they aren't rushed, that they're well-researched,
Right.
and that we get whatever we end up with, whatever we decide with, everyone will have had a chance to think about it and to learn as much as they need to learn about it. And that way, we're just doing our duty, really.
No, I applaud you guys for doing this. I'm glad that we're looking at it before we have to. I echo what you're saying. I don't think we ought to be running from Townsend's mistakes, but we should be looking forward. I like the part about where we'd like to be able to think of the town plan as something more than a pipe dream. So I think that's good.
I don't think the town plan is a pipe dream.
But if we can't enforce it, I'm referring to not being.
Because why has all this time been spent on it for all these years, you know? Is it all in vain?
No, we still need the town plan.
No, I'm just saying
Other things.
metaphorically that.
Yeah.
There
There
are
are,
thoughts occurred to us too.
Yeah.
The town plan is there so that certainly at the state level, when things come up, certain actions have to be certified or to be approved, have to conform in general with the town plan.
Right.
But as a document itself, it is not a list of rules that have to be
Oh,
followed.
I know.
So, and one of the things that I did in preparation for writing the final report for this current grant that we've been on is I came across a questionnaire that was distributed over a year ago when the renewal process for the town plan had just begun. And several people actually commented on the questionnaire that they wish that the town plan was actually, that something would actually happen from it, that actions would proceed from adoption of the town plan. And people said literally, nothing ever happened, it just lay there. And so we're trying to be responsible and good stewards of the town to bring this forward and to get
Plan.
people talking about it. Yeah, to actually plan and to regulate.
Instead of real. Thank you. Yep.
excellent. Okay, listen, thank you very, very much. Is there any other questions from the board? Hearing none. We've got the conversation started. Let's visit it in a little while towards the end of summer and start talking about putting something together. You and I are in communication often enough, and we'll get something and then we'll go through the board.
If I could suggest at some point using the town website to be able to post documents, maybe even letters, letters
Right.
from people, so that information will be easily accessible.
Sure, and I would,
Like this letter?
Even that, yes, actually, I was going to ask if that letter could be put into your minutes.
But would be the select board's view too? How does that work? Is this just from the planning commission or?
Well, that's a letter from the planning commission to you, and you'd have to get Karen's permission to put her letter, obviously. But we certainly would give permission to put our letter, it's a public document.
I think it makes sense to include that in the minutes.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go in minutes, but it's,
But in full.
you attach it.
it's,
You're not signing it by putting it on the.
I know, but it's a little biased. I mean,
But
if you were the seller to Dollar General and like the town of Jamaica is, you know, that's where I'd have a problem with all of this. I've already said that, so I don't want to say anything else. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this going up on our website, the way it's worded is a real slam on Dollar General, which obviously the planning commission and some members of the select board don't want, and some town members, but.
I think it would be just as part of your minutes, I mean, incorporating the letter as part of the record of this meeting. I wasn't advocating for putting that front and center headline on the town website.
I think we can attach it much as we attach the
This part of
verbal.
the minutes.
Yeah, as much as we attach the verbal presentation.
And you know, Paul, the planning commission eloquently asked to be put on the agenda at some point, and we were put on as soon as you were asked, so. No, I think that's, was nice of the board to, you know, act on it that quick.
I think we're partners.
We're not adversaries, we're
No, I know.
partners.
I know.
That's
I think, to what you just said a second ago, and what you're leading into, anybody out there, who's watching this, either on TV or on CCTV or BCTV or whatever, if you have some thoughts on this thing, write them down, send them to the town or to the planning commission, and we can review them, get some feedback.
The planning commission has an email, jamaicaplanning@gmail.com.
So we can get the feedback. Feedback can start tomorrow.
I think that's the huge important thing, we just start the dialogue.
And on his side of this, I should bring this up, because this bothered me a little bit too. I'm not making a case for this, I just throw this out. We have a strong feeling in this community that we want to encourage businesses and we want to encourage growth. Now we're saying, yeah, but. So I think we have to balance that out. On one hand, saying we want to encourage growth in Jamaica, at the other hand, but not that kind of growth.
It's not specifically Dollar General kind of
No.
growth, but more in general.
Sure.
Organic growth that fits with our sense of place.
Absolutely, and I think we
We need
agree
to
with
work
that.
Dollar General out of it and just
But
say,
Brattleboro has an empty building, which was Home Depot.
Right.
And they forced it the same way. Because they all have purchasing agents who don't reveal who's actually buying the property. And now for, what, 5 or 6 years?
10 years on.
There's a big empty store, which is certainly not economic development for Brattleboro. And to the credit of Brown and Roberts and the True Value across the road, they were able to sustain themselves in the face of Home Depot, to where Home Depot pulled out.
Home Depot couldn't make 10 grand a day, that's why they went
Right.
there.
And all this,
But that didn't help economic development.
No, I know.
I guess I'm just saying that in concert with Andy, in the position of, I don't want to be seen as saying, yeah, we want businesses, and then say, oh, but not you guys. Or, we don't want any businesses, but you guys are welcome.
yeah,
Those
no,
things are-
absolutely not.
Yeah.
You don't want oil wells in the middle of Jamaica either.
I have room in my yard for an oil well.
That's not in the village.
Yeah, it's right up the street.
What's that? That's what you.
Yes.
This afternoon, I went to the Secretary of State's website and the section on land use regulation, and there's a lot of information there, but I just want to read a couple of things where they indicate that land use regulation is appropriate in the state of Vermont. And this is 24 VSA section 2302. The first one is to encourage appropriate architectural design. Another is to protect residential, agricultural, and other areas from undue concentrations of population and overcrowding of land and buildings, or from traffic congestion. To plan development so as to maintain the historic settlement pattern of compact village and urban centers separated by rural countryside. And the last one, to identify, protect, and preserve important natural and historic features of the Vermont landscape. This is from the Vermont Secretary of State, stating why appropriate land use regulation may be a valid and good thing to have.
Well, we have the land use in the plan.
In the plan, but it's
It's a
not
whole big
enforceable. So these are regulations that the select board, as ordinances or bylaws, would need to apply, rather than a town plan, which is more aspirational.
Yes. And therein lies a big crunch, because the aspirational part versus the actual operations stuff of making it happen. There's going to be some struggle in that.
I was going to say, I'm not an attorney, but I have been both the trial counsel and the defense counsel in several military court-martials. And if I were an attorney attacking the town plan, I would say, if you guys aren't serious enough about writing ordinances to enforce your land use policies, you know, they're no good.
Chris's point is valid.
No, you're making some very good points, independent of the Dollar General.
Oh, we're in a discussion and a debate here,
Yeah.
kind of, so.
Well, we don't want to debate, I appreciate that. So thank you very much. That was extremely important. I think that we've shared that with the town. We're going to move forward, and I think that a townwide discussion is, from both directions, is in order. Let's see how we go and move on with that. With everybody's approval. All right, the last thing I have listed is time for public concerns, and it seems like we has exhausted the public.
I'm not
Anything?
exhausted, I can still walk. Stop me a ride home.
Oh, good. Do I have anything else?
Do we need to make any kind of a motion in
For-
terms of what you were just saying, that we're going to begin to have conversations, or?
I don't think we need to do that right now. We're not spending any money, we're not proposing any rules or anything. We're just talking about a conversation. And as the summer wears on, we'll get more feedback, get a sense of where we're going, and then as we get into a time when I think we can get a good grip on the population, then we can bring something together, and we can set that up then. You have a question?
No, I have no question.
Okay. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we stand adjourned at 8:16. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.